There's someone in your life right now who, the moment something goes wrong, moves toward it. Not dramatically, not with a speech. They just quietly shift toward the problem the way a compass needle shifts toward north. Doesn't matter if it's a leaking radiator, a friendship falling apart, a project collapsing the night before the deadline. They walk in, take it all in, and start working. And somewhere in the back of your mind, watching them, is this low hum of a question you've probably never said out loud. Why aren't I like that? Because your instinct wasn't to move toward it. It was to freeze or panic or hope someone else would handle it first. And yet here's this person, maybe your dad, maybe a friend, maybe a colleague you've studied from a distance, just solving things, calmly, consistently. Like the world is a series of problems that exist specifically to be resolved by them. What is actually going on inside people like this? The easy answer is that they're just confident. They've done this before, they know things, they were raised well, but that explanation is too clean. It skips over the actual mechanism, and when you skip the mechanism, you skip the part that's useful to you. Here's what researchers found. In the late 1970s, psychologist Albert Bandura identified something he called self-efficacy. And this is not the same as confidence, which is why it matters. Confidence is general. Self-efficacy is specific. It's not I'm a capable person. It's I have handled things like this before, and that means I can handle this. It's a belief built piece by piece out of actual experience. And the single most powerful way it gets built, Bandura found, is through mastery experiences. Not being told you're capable, not watching someone else succeed, actually doing the thing, getting your hands on it, struggling through it, and arriving, eventually, on the other side. That's the architecture of a fixer. It's not talent. It's a specific kind of accumulated memory. Think about what happens the first time a child tries to fix something and it actually works. Maybe they unplugged and replugged something and the screen came back. Maybe they put pressure on a cut and the bleeding stopped. Maybe they said exactly the right thing to a crying friend and the tension broke. Something small, something almost unremarkable. Except it isn't unremarkable, because in that moment, something happens to how that child understands the world. The world stops being a place that just happens to them. It becomes a place they can reach into and change. And every time after that, when something breaks, their nervous system doesn't issue a threat response. It issues something closer to curiosity. Oh, something's wrong. Let me look at it. That shift from threat to puzzle is not a personality trait. It's a learned response. And once you understand that, the distance between you and the fixers in your life starts to look smaller than it did. Now let's talk about something that looks like confidence, but is actually different. Because this is the part most people miss. When someone calm walks into a crisis, they are not certain it will work out. They feel the same uncertainty you feel. The same not knowing. The same awareness that this could go badly. What's different is what they do with that uncertainty. Psychologists have a term for this: tolerance of ambiguity. The capacity to sit inside a situation where you don't yet have the answer without coming apart while you figure it out. People who struggle here need resolution fast. They need someone to tell them it's going to be okay right now. And when that reassurance doesn't come, the anxiety floods in and makes thinking impossible. The fixer in your life learned somewhere along the way to be okay in that in-between space, okay not knowing the answer, okay with uncertainty as a starting condition rather than a verdict. That's not a gift they were born with. It was learned through being in that space enough times that it stopped feeling like danger. But I need to stop here, because there's something important that a lot of these conversations leave out. Not everyone who fixes everything is doing it from a healthy place. Some people are compulsive fixers. The difference matters. The compulsive fixer can't not fix things. When something is broken and outside their control, they don't feel curiosity. They feel dread. They hover. They offer solutions nobody asked for. They steer conversations toward resolution before the other person has finished explaining the problem. Because somewhere early in their life, being helpless wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unsafe. Maybe chaos was constant, and competence was the only thing that earned them security. Maybe being the one who solved things was how they justified their presence. The fixing wasn't coming from strength. It was coming from fear, wearing the costume of strength. The tell, if you're trying to spot it in yourself, how do you feel when someone takes the problem out of your hands? If the answer is relief, you're probably a healthy fixer. If the answer is anxiety, agitation, a quiet need to stay involved even when asked to step back, that's worth looking at more closely. Because then there's the other kind, the fixers who are genuinely fascinating. These are the people who don't just solve the problem. They want to understand it. They'll ask questions with no practical value. They'll explain what went wrong in detail that serves no immediate purpose, except that they found it beautiful. They'll take apart something they already fixed, just to understand the mechanism better. These people fell in love somewhere along the way, not with the outcome of solving things, but with the process. The gap between broken and working is one of the most interesting places in the world to them. And what they model, without intending to, is something quietly radical. Not knowing how to do something is a temporary condition. Broken is not a permanent state. You can put your hands on a problem and actually move it. Spending time around people like that changes how your nervous system categorizes difficulty. Problems start to feel less like verdicts and more like invitations. Now, you might be watching this and recognizing yourself in the fixer. You've been this way your whole life and never really interrogated why. And maybe some of what you just heard is landing with a weight you didn't expect. Or you might be on the other side, the person who freezes, who outsources, who's been quietly carrying the low-grade shame of not being the one who handles things. And if it's that second person, I want to say something directly. The reason you respond to problems the way you do is not a character flaw. It's not evidence of some fundamental inadequacy. It's a history, a set of early experiences that taught you, accurately given your circumstances at the time, that problems are things that happen to you. That uncertainty is dangerous. That not knowing the answer means something is wrong. That was a rational lesson to learn. The problem is, it's still running now in situations where it no longer applies. And the reason this matters, the reason Bandura's work on self-efficacy is so quietly hopeful, is that the belief can be rebuilt. Not through motivation, not through willpower, not through deciding to be a different kind of person. Through small experiences of actually doing the thing. You tighten the screw. You make the call you've been avoiding. You sit with the uncomfortable situation for 5 more minutes instead of handing it to someone else. And slowly, without drama, the memory of having handled things accumulates. And that memory is the whole architecture. Here's the question worth sitting with. Think of the last time something broke, practically, emotionally, logistically, and your first instinct was to look away. What would it have taken to look toward it instead? Not to fix it perfectly. Not to have all the answers. Just to stay in the room with it. Because that's where fixers begin. Not with competence. With the decision to stay. Understanding why you're wired this way is the first step. But insight without movement becomes just more material for your brain to loop over. You see the pattern, you name it, and nothing changes. If this spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, the person who always freezes, or the one who can never stop fixing. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do for someone is hand them the language for something they've felt their whole life but never had words for. Subscribe if you want more of this. Every week I go deep into the psychology of why we are the way we are. Not to diagnose, but to understand. And understanding, as we talked about today, is where change actually starts. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. Does this resonate with you? Are you the fixer, or do you have one in your life? Tell me which part of this landed hardest. I'm genuinely curious.